welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com.
What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined every Friday by my main man, Derek Bell. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or anywhere you get your podcasts. Today, we're diving deep into the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 1 matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals and everything it comes with. But first, Derek, it is a beautiful day out here in the Burgh. AC died right in time to drive to Cincinnati. Very excited about it. You know, it's a good sweat. Don't have to go to the gym tomorrow. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good, man. I don't know, man. I've been jacked up all week. I can't even lie to you. I mean, just something about, college football last week was awesome. There was a bunch of good games that got me in the mood for some football. And then now Steelers, Bengals to start the season. There's nothing better than that. AFC North football week 1. Hyped, man.
Hyped. It feels real. Like this is the preseason was good. It was a good teaser. You needed football. But like I hit the last couple of days, I'm like, I need some real football. Like some real football. It didn't even hit me last night. It hit me this morning. I was driving to work and I was like, there was football on last night. Like that's brought a smile. Like gave you some chills. It was nice. I'm excited. First off, shout out to our boy James here, new viewer. We appreciate you as much as you appreciate us, no doubt there. Let's dive into the Steelers-Bengals matchup. We'll start with some injuries. Deontay Johnson and Chuks Okorafor, both of them missed practice throughout the week. Chuks missed Thursday, came back Friday. Deontay was limited all week until Friday. Both of them are good to go. No injury tags. Both of them said they'll be 100% by Sunday. I think Chuks is the bigger one, but how positive of a note is this for the Steelers to head into the weekend?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, Chuks would have been a monumental loss if they couldn't have had him go. Just because we'll talk more about Hendrickson, but also not just Trey Hendrickson, but Sam Hubbard on the other side. I mean, pretty good edge combo for the Bengals. It's important to have those tackles, especially because Chuks probably, in my opinion, throughout the preseason, it was between him and Mason Cole as far as which of those two were the most steady of the Steelers offensive linemen. So big. And then we know Deontay wide receiver 1. You really need all the firepower that you can get. I mean, we kind of expect, 17 points not going to win this game on Sunday. I'll be very surprised if that happens. So you need, your best weapon out there, try to put some points on the board and keep up with an explosive Cincinnati offense.
Yeah, I think Deontay, my thing with Deontay is it could have been overlooked because the wide receivers are deep. And maybe I'm looking at this as a bit of a pessimistic view, but if the offensive line struggles, the guy you want in the passing game is Deontay because nobody runs those short routes better on the roster. And that's going to be the guy that, okay, he's reliable. I'm going to throw it over there. Chances are he's going to catch it every time. That's a guy Mitch is going to need. So Chuks, obviously, like you said, monumental. Would have been, Trent Scott versus Sam Hubbard would not have been fun to see and would have just added more anxiety to a team that's already worried about their offensive line. But Deontay's still big. Definitely still big. Do you still expect a heavy rotation at wide receiver?
I don't. I think it's going to be Deontay at the X, Pickens at the Z, Chase in the slot. Now, I do think we could see a little more rotation, maybe not as stationary for all the guys in terms of sticking with one spot. I think they might rotate in the slot a little bit more under Ike Hilliard. Frisman Jackson, excuse me. Because that's something that he's emphasized with them, throughout training camp. So we'll see how that works. But yeah, I think those are your 3 guys. And then obviously, Freiermuth is going to be in the mix there. And then we expect, Najee to contribute in the pass game as well.
Yeah, I definitely expect a heavy dose of Najee, especially in that check down. I think Pat Freiermuth is going to be a very overlooked guy in the passing game this week, especially with, Von Bell is an excellent safety, but Pat Freiermuth feels like the guy that you could forget about in that mix. And then he could have a bigger game. Zach Gentry, I expect some Zach Gentry. And I think that's a good way to transition here into first thing I want to talk about, which is the offensive line. You wrote a piece about Dan Moore versus Trey Hendrickson earlier in the week. Everything Trey does well, how the Steelers can go about slowing him down. I mean, in my head, it's just you have to have two bodies there at all times. Do you view it the same way? Do you view it differently? How do you stop a guy that's that good?
Yeah, I mean, Hendrickson was top 5 in pretty much every pass rushing statistics last year. Pressures, sacks, 14 sacks, man, that's pretty impressive. And if you think about, the other AFC North pass rushers, TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, those guys get a lot of the national love. But Hendrickson's season just, in my opinion, flew way under the radar.
Yep.
He's a guy that plays with a crazy motor. He can rush with power. He can beat you off the edge. He really gave Dan Moore fits last season. I think in those two matchups, Hendrickson finished with like 11 pressures, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and he only played about 60 pass rush snaps. So I mean, like 20% of the snaps basically he was affecting the quarterback. So that matchup is extremely key to the Steelers' offensive success. It could even, in my opinion, determine the game. To your point, I think, adding an extra guy over there for him to rush twice, at least like staging like a tight end. And, I know you talked about getting Freiermuth out in the passing game. They may have to use him a little bit more just to kind of slow down those edge rushers, which I think is it's kind of like a pick your poison type of thing. It might be a necessary evil for the Steelers offense to slow them down. Because if Mitch is on his back, I mean, obviously you're not going to be moving the football. So.
No, I think that's where the Deontay thing came in for me. Is it's just like, okay, well, the Steelers could live without a wide receiver on the field because I think they're going to run a lot of 12 personnel in this game because Gentry's the guy. If it's not Derek Watt, and if you could fit Derek Watt over there, I think that's a good move. But I think Gentry's the guy that you have to rely on to say, you're going to block a lot in this game and you're going to be on Trey Hendrickson a lot in this game. And if that's the case, if you're only running 2 wide receivers, you keep Pickens and Deontay on the outside, and then you work with Muth or you work with Chase Claypool, like working a slot or at the tight end position, it's not a bad rotation to have there to keep those guys in. I think that's what a talented wide receiver room in Pittsburgh kind of gives them the upper hand, because last year it was like, okay, well, we only have limited options. And especially after Juju went down, you were looking at it just like, you could keep 2 guys in here, but Gentry wasn't as developed as you'd like him to be. And Eric Ebron and Pat Freiermuth at the time were pretty much non-existent in the blocking game. So this year, I think that is an upper hand. To stick with the defense, you brought this up before the podcast that the Bengals secondary did pretty much one thing against the Steelers last year, and that was run too high. And not every other team that you looked at, the stats say that they mixed it up, 40, 60, whatever. Pretty much about 70%, I believe you said, too high coverage for the Bengals. You expect that again? You expect different things? New quarterback, new Matt Canada offense, new system.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. The Bengals last year over the course of the season were about split in terms of like too high, single high coverages. And then that changed. When they played the Steelers both times, they were about 72, 73% too high. So they were sticking both those safeties back and making the Steelers, throw short and underneath, use the middle of the field. And obviously we saw how that went. It didn't really work. That's what I'm interested to see. Was that no more of a Ben thing, or does that change with your Trubisky under center? Or is that a Matt Canada thing where it's something that they've identified on film that they just aren't comfortable or are more comfortable playing like too high? The big thing with that is we talk about all the time how like the pass game and the run game kind of are married together in one. Is if the Steelers can run the football, they can get teams out of those too high looks. And that's something we talked about all last year. The Steelers really couldn't run the football against those light boxes, so teams never felt threatened to bring that additional safety into the box. So that's a big thing for this year. If the Steelers can be more effective and more efficient running the ball.
Oh, I think Derek froze. This happened before the podcast. If the Steelers could be more effective, more efficient running the football, you could take a safety, push him push him into the box, something the Steelers didn't deal with at all last season. While we're waiting for Derek, by the way, toss in some questions. I'd be happy to answer them. We're having some technical difficulties with the internet these days. Nobody's internet likes to work. The Steelers, for me, when it comes to beating the Cincinnati Bengals single or double high coverage, is you have to remove routes like what Chase Claypool did last season. You look at what the Steelers' route tree was last year, and it's very predictable pretty much at all times. You have different options to run different schemes. I think that Deontay plays a big role into this, because if the offensive line is a concern, and it is a concern to me, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, we want to pull guys to the outside so that you don't have to crowd the box. You have to pull guys to the outside, and you have to make them run shorter routes. Deontay is pretty much the king when it comes to shorter routes on the outside. That's exactly what you're looking for. When it comes to running the football, that at that point opens up the box. You slam the middle with Najee Harris. If that's successful, now you have to play a mix and match game if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Derek's back. Let's test this one out. And I'll answer this before I toss him back in. How many sacks do you think TJ will have in his first game? I'm going to give you a bold prediction. And I'm going to say 3. I'm going to go 3 sacks. All right. I tried my best to explain how running the football effectively moves a too high safety, but I think you could do it better than I could.
I don't know what's going on with my internet. I think I have it fixed up finally. Just reworked some settings. No, they just need to run the ball more efficiently, man. The Steelers were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year running against like light boxes. So teams never felt threatened to move that safety down into the box. Now that's a way to counter that. Like if they're able to run the ball better with Najee, and stay ahead of the chains, teams will be forced to kind of pick your poison, whether they want to play single high and put that extra guy in the box, or if they're just going to be able to stick, 2 safeties back to where the Steelers are going to have the advantage in the run game.
When it comes to the routes that they're going to run, can you move a too high safety look with how, I mean, last year I felt like the Steelers were very predictable in what they were going to run when they threw the football. I don't think they're going to be as predictable this year. Can you manipulate a secondary with the routes you're running?
You can. I mean, you can run like things like such as like sail concepts and stuff like that. And the Steelers have done that before. The big thing too is like utilizing the middle of the field. So when teams are like stuck in that cover 2 look, there is like that honey hole kind of like middle of the field area, about 15 yards, like past the middle linebacker, where there's going to be an opening. If you look, a good example of that would be against Detroit, the final preseason game, that pass that Trubisky hit to Freiermuth that was kind of like thrown back shoulder intentionally. Utilizing the middle of the field will also, open that up, because then they'll be forced to put a post safety there. Yeah,
I agree. And I think Pat Freiermuth again is the key to so much here in this game. Like you could manipulate any defense you want if your tight end is able to do pretty much everything. What about the end arounds? Okay, when we're looking at end arounds, because I think that they're going to run a lot of them, or little shuffle passes. What does that do to the Bengals defense? You would know better than I would.
The end arounds are just going to stretch them more like horizontally, but you can use some of those like those motions, the ghost motions, the jet sweeps and stuff like that, to keep the edge defenders honest to where they can't just like crash down. So that's something that they might try. I definitely expect, that to be a heavier part of the Steelers offense this year. They were like near the bottom of the league last year in motion. I just don't see that. I don't see that being a repeat.
No way. I've been saying it all summer. Matt Canada's offense, like I'm not as great into the X's and O's as you are. But Matt Canada's offense moves a lot of pieces, and sometimes, I think I've said this to you actually, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, I don't understand why we shifted there, why the offense decided to move that piece over to the other side and then move them back. Like I'm sure it works when have a defense in front of you. When you're playing scout team defense, a lot of the times I'm just like, I don't know what's going on right now. This doesn't make any sense. All right, let's talk about. Huh?
It's a lot of eye candy. It's a
lot of eye candy. I literally said it to you. I was like, when the Chiefs or a team like that move, you could see there's a purpose there. A lot of times I was just like, yeah, I think that one was just because that looked really good. If that moved right there, it makes you look like this is not just a draw play. That there's a little pizzazz to the mix here. All right, let's talk about the defense. I want to start. You brought up again before the podcast, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did you say did not blitz at all last season against Joe Burrow?
Not really, no. I'll find the exact number, but I don't think they blitzed them at all.
Not one time. Just because, I mean, you look at the wide receivers.
They blitzed a couple times. Let me see. I'm like trying to go through like some of my notes that I had for my article that I'm putting out in the morning.
Is that a inside linebacker thing? Is that a don't trust the secondary thing?
That's just because Burrow last year torched the blitz. And it's just kind of one of those things where they didn't want to leave their corners exposed. So that's another thing too. They blitzed Burrow last year on 12 pass attempts. On those 12 pass attempts, he threw 3 touchdowns.
No way.
So they don't really want to do that. I doubt we see very much of that.
So you don't think it's gonna change? You don't think you blitz at all, even with a better secondary?
No, I don't think they will. I think what the Steelers are gonna do, and this is just my opinion, but I think that with the way that they lost last year in that second matchup, I think that they're gonna try to stop Joe Mixon, and they're going to play, even though I don't know if it's smart, I think they're going to still play a good amount of like single high. They're not going to blitz. They're going to try to stop Mixon, and then they're just going to take their chances, I think, on the outside and just hope that they can control the big plays with the corners and Minka over top.
Do you think
I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm just saying.
I was going to say, do you think they can? Could that happen? Can they do that?
Kind of a
Kello could probably keep up with Jamar.
Yeah, it's probably
the other two cannot.
It's just like Burrow said in his press conference, like teams are going to have a big decision to make. If you sit back, you play too high, like you're going to trust your front 6, front 7 to deal with Joe Mixon. If you bring a safety down, then you're basically single covering all their receivers. And they have arguably the best receiver corps in the league. So it's really just pick your poison. I just think last year the Bengals killed the Steelers on the ground too in that second matchup. Like they ran wide zone like 14, 15 times, averaging like almost 8 yards a carry. So, I mean, you got to stop one of them. I think what could be big is if like early in the game, if they do try to leave those safeties back and the defensive line holds up to where, they're stopping the run without that extra safety, that's huge for them. And we'll see that, I think, early in the game. They're going to try that out. It'll just be an adjustment thing depending on how, they stop the run early.
I think that's the biggest thing is, can you stop the run early? And I don't know if they can. I don't know if they've gotten that much better. But if you could stop Joe Mixon, I mean, you control this ball game because then you could play anywhere you'd like. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not easy to stop Joe Burrow in this wide receiver set, but I think that the Steelers secondary has improved so much and I think it's the options. Like I talked to Cam Sutton earlier in the week, and he told me that, right now he believes that he's going to look every one of those wide receivers in the face at some point during a football game. And I believe it. I think that they're going to switch them around. I don't think Kello should play anybody but Jamar Chase, but if it ends up where somebody else is playing somebody else, I mean, I don't know. Here's a question. Does Derek have the stat for Jamar Chase versus Steelers compared to Jamar Chase versus the rest of the NFL?
I know the Steelers did a better job holding him in check than Baltimore, but I mean, Chase still had a good game.
I was going to say he still had a good game, and then T. Higgins had a monster game.
Yeah, I don't think Higgins played if I remember correctly, Higgins didn't play in the first matchup, but he went bananas in the second.
Yeah, no, I think it was the other way around. Because James Pierre was the first game. That's where Higgins had a monster game, and then I don't think he was there the second time around.
I could have swore it was the opposite. But no, they might have been. I'm just looking. That second game, Chase only had 3 catches for 39 yards, but the first game he scored 2 touchdowns. So, we'll just have to see. I mean, Higgins is a monster, man. Like I think he gets underrated because of how great Chase is. Like Chase is a generational talent at receiver, but Higgins he's the perfect wide receiver for like what they ask him to do. They run a bunch of like dig routes, dagger concepts, him over the middle, his body control. He's got big hand. He's got really good hands. He's excellent over the middle. So he's like the perfect complement for Jamar Chase, which obviously makes them defending them really difficult.
I went the first year T. Higgins was here. I wrote an article after the first game with him in it that him and Joe Burrow were going to be just a complete menace to the Steelers for the next 10 years. And then they came back and drafted Jamar Chase, and that article became completely irrelevant. But at one time, that's how you looked at that. Like the T. Higgins rookie season, which I think he dealt with injuries during that year, if I'm not mistaken. Like you saw it, you were just like, this guy is going to be so good. And he's so overlooked because of that. And then you got Tyler Boyd in the middle, who's still probably one of the most consistent wide receivers in football. You have Hayden Hurst playing tight end. There's a lot going on there. Let's talk about the offensive line. They changed pretty much their entire offensive line outside of their right tackle and Jonah Williams. Do you think they got better? Do you think they got worse? My biggest question mark is a rookie at right guard in Cordell Volson, but the rest of them that I didn't know was a rookie right guard until an hour and a half ago. But you look at the rest of this line, there's a lot of moves. Do you think they got better? You think there's still major question marks?
Yeah, I mean, I think they got better. But here's the thing with, in my opinion, with the Bengals offensive line. I do think they're going to be better. I think Lyle Collins is a good player. Jonah Williams had a really good season last year now that he was finally healthy. Ted Karras is a solid player. I think Alex Kapp is a solid player. I thought they might have overpaid him just a little bit. But Cordell Volson's the big question mark. 5th-round pick. I anticipate that the Steelers are going to try and get as many one-on-one matchups with Cam Hayward across from him as possible.
Oh, yes.
I definitely think that is going to be something they look to exploit. I was kind of looking at some of their preseason stuff. I was not impressed with Volson very much. He was marginally better than Jackson Carman, but Jackson Carman's also terrible. So that left guard spot, like I really do think that the Steelers are going to look to exploit that. Here's the thing, though, with the offensive line. People made a bunch of huge deal about the number of sacks that Burrow took last year, and he was under duress a lot. With that being said, though, Burrow's a scrambler. He wants to hold on to the football. So it doesn't matter. He could play behind the best offensive line in the league, and I still think that he would get sacked like 40 times. Because he wants to hold on to the football. It's in his nature. Like, he wants to make big plays down the field. He wants to scramble out of the pocket. Like, he's not a guy that, like, just is someone who's going to, like, quit on plays. So when you have a guy like that, you're going to take more sacks. So even with this, like, revamped offensive line, I still see no reason that the Steelers, if they play really well up front, can't get to him 4 or 5 times.
Is that the number you're going with, 4 or 5 times? How many times do you think he gets sacked in this game?
Well, it just depends on the game script. I mean, if it's like last year and it's a blowout at halftime, which I really don't anticipate. I don't think the pride aspect of this defense after they got embarrassed last year is gonna. I just don't think TJ Watt and Mika are gonna let that happen.
This defense is significantly better than last season. That's the thing. The Steelers' defense is good enough that if the Steelers' offensive line was anything at all, this team would be looked at in a totally different light because of the defense. So I think the Steelers' defense is going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're still going to have plenty of opportunities to get to Burrow. It's just really a matter of time holding up in the back end. I'm interested to see how they play him because, like I said, we were talking about this before I jumped on, but when the Steelers played like cover 1, cover 3, so those single high looks last year against Burrow, Burrow was 21 of 26, 282 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 135 passer rating.
Yikes.
So that's really good. But it is a different secondary too. Like it's you got obviously the Miles Jack addition at linebacker, but it's a different secondary. You're going to see Levi Wallace. You're going to see a lot of him on Sunday. You're going to see Akillo. Remember, Akillo really didn't play very much against the Bengals last year.
Did he play at all against the Bengals last year?
He played a couple snaps, like kind of in garbage time in that second meeting, but he really didn't start to play until right after that. So that's a big difference, man. The difference in athleticism between Akilo and James Pierre and Joe Hayden is night and day. So that's why I'm hopefully gonna count on like him being able to kind of match some of the weapons they got on the outside.
That's what I'm saying. Like Akello Witherspoon changes his entire secondary because they actually have somebody who's athletic enough to. I don't know if anybody can compete with Jamar Chase athletically, but he's way closer than anybody they had last season by a mile. And I think that's going to go so far and just being able to shut him down and focus other things. I mean, Cam Sutton's physical enough. Levi Wallace is physical enough to play with T. Higgins as long as they don't lose him in coverage. And then, I mean, like Arthur Millett's a big red flag, but you put Cam Sutton in the slot, I'd expect him to match up with Tyler Boyd one-on-one every time and at least come out of there successful half of the time. So, I mean, you cover the secondary. You got to blitz. You got to blitz a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if they're gonna risk it. I'm interested to see. I mean, the Steelers really didn't blitz very much last year at all. I mean, it was completely different from like what you're normally used to seeing from like a Steelers defense. Yeah. But you know, I'm interested to see if they start that with this matchup. Like I said, it can't go much worse than it went last year for them on either side of the ball. I mean, they got completely taken to the woodshed in both matchups on offense and defense. So, you know, I'm interested to see what the strategy is, but we'll see. Somebody said, "Don't say
that." I clicked on the wrong one. All right, let's talk before we get into bets. I don't even think I warned you that we're picking football.
Hey man, we did so well with the bets last year.
I'm keeping note. Last year I didn't keep track of anything. This year I'm keeping track. Let me tell you, first off, before like I want to talk about matchups, but first, I am 0-15 in the last 2 months of gambling. 0-15, Derek. 0-15. It's bad. FanDuel is basically telling me at this point, just like, are you sure you want to bet? Really? You're really bad. I'm like, yeah, we'll get it back. I'm telling you, I'm going to hit on every single Steelers bet this season. It's like, it's coming. The turnaround happens. Maybe that's the gambling addict in me, but it's coming, and it's coming at the right time. All right, let's talk matchups. What is your key matchup? Both sides. Let's start defense. Steelers defense in this game. Who's your key matchup to make or break this game? And like, make or break's a very broad term, but you know what I'm saying.
Are we talking about like the matchup I'm looking forward to, or the matchup that matters most in terms?
Let's go both. I want both of them. Give me the one you're looking forward to the best. Let's start with some good news.
I'm looking forward to Akello. I want to see. I really want to see how he does against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That to me, that's what I'll be watching. Probably as soon as I get the all 22 next week. That'll be what I watch first. In terms of like matchups that could probably swing win or loss in terms of the Steelers defense against their offense, I think it's really probably going to be Cam Hayward against Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, Cordell Volson. I really think that Hayward could be a guy that just absolutely wrecks that game plan, especially if they try to go with a lot of the wide zone stuff. I mean, this is a different defensive line than what the Bengals saw last year. I mean, granted, they had a tremendous success, but they're not out here playing, you know, Hank Mondu and all those guys. Like, there is no more of that. So we're going to see Tyson Alualu, Larry Ogunjobi, Cam Hayward. They're going to be more healthy. So I'm interested to see that. But I think, you know, stopping the run and Cam, I think he could have a big game. You know, starting a rookie left guard, that's huge.
Oh, yeah. I agree on that one. Oh, let's
timeout.
Let's get this guy out of here. I don't know what's going on here. Apologize for the spammer there. I agree with the Cam Hayward thing. I agree with the Kello. I knew Kello was coming out of your mouth. I knew it. I shouldn't even ask that question. Everybody watching knew Kello was going to come out of your mouth. I think Cam Sutton's going to play a role into this one as well, because I like Levi Wallace a lot, but I think Cam's going to move around and be able to shut down everybody else. I could see Miles Jack playing a role in this as well. You need somebody to stop the run, because if you stop Joe Mixon, you could then focus on stopping the rest of this offense. And I mean, I know yours was like, oh, Cam could absolutely dominate and change this game. Mine's more just like, all right, let's figure out if the Steelers could actually do this and then take it from there. I think that Miles Jack's going to play a big one. I think Cam Sutton's going to play a big one. You stop that short game, just go deep. Keller versus Jamar all day long with Minka over the top. Let's see what happens. Eventually, I'm going to put, Jamar Chase is a generational talent. Minka Fitzpatrick's pretty up there as well. So I like those ones. Just so everybody knows the challenges of doing this live. This comment right here had me scrolling Twitter faster than I could breathe or think while you were talking. I was just like, did it really happen? Did the Steelers just do this? I was looking at everybody. All right, let's go to the offensive side of the ball. Steelers offense, Bengals defense, the matchup you're looking for, the make or break matchup for the Steelers.
I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. In terms of like what matters for wins and losses, it's a no-brainer. It's Dan Moore and Trey Hendrickson. I mean, I would be doing myself a disservice. What in the world is going on? I would be doing myself a disservice after I wasted all that time going over Hendrickson film if I made any other answer. But it's definitely, in my opinion, the biggest matchup to watch. I mean, Hendrickson has the ability to completely wreck a game plan. And,
yes,
I think especially with Dan Moore's struggles throughout the preseason, man, like you have to be extremely worried, I think, and it would be a good word for this week 1 matchup. And it's not going to get any easier for him, man. Like he's going to have to see Hendrickson twice, who lines up on the right side of the field like 99% of the time. Myles Garrett, he moves around a little bit more, but like it's not going to get any easier.
Yeah, it's not going to get any easier.
Moore has to figure this out quick. So that's definitely the matchup that I'm looking forward to. Probably in terms of just like entertainment, I would say Chase Claypool and Eli Apple, because it was really chippy. It was really chippy last year. Eli Apple was taking some cheap shots at Claypool down the field. They had a back and forth that was, obviously the Steelers didn't really stand a chance last year in either matchup. But, Chase made some plays. And there was just a lot of jawing. So I think there's going to be a lot of trash talk. I think there's going to be some extracurricular stuff going on as well, just like there was last year. So that'll be something that I'll be watching for as well.
I'm going to add to both of those. So my key is obviously Dan Moore. That is the make or break. I agree with that one. But I'm going to say Gentry plays a major role in this as well. He's going to be a guy that we're going to see a lot of. Fully expect that. Just from what I've seen at practice, what I've heard, I think that you're going to see a lot of Gentry double teaming Hendrickson. That's going to be the make or break. And then I like the Eli Apple Chase Claypool. That's going to get chirpy. I'm very excited about some chirps. On top of that, I would like to see what Chase Claypool and Mike Hilton can do up against each other in the slot. I think Chase holds that advantage, obviously, all day long by a mile, but Mike Hilton's a scrappy dude. And I'm not saying he's going to beat him. I'm just saying that I don't know if Chase has been hit by a guy who maybe plays as physical as Mike Hilton does, because Chase has been on the outside and he just runs deep shots. So it's not like, he hasn't had that guy just like constantly ride his hip, make sure that he feels every hit. I think, when you're 6'4" and you're facing a guy that's 5'8", the odds are in your favor 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, Chase is just a better athlete. He's bigger, stronger, faster. Hilton's not going to give in, though. I mean, like you said, he's not going to just, completely lay down. If the Steelers are going to win this game, though, like Anthony just said, I mean, it's really, really obvious that the Steelers playmakers have to dominate. I mean, Cincinnati has a massive advantage up front in terms of like their defensive front against the Steelers offensive line. So the Steelers weapons need to take over this game. Like you're probably going to need a couple, explosive plays. That's definitely something, the Steelers were, almost, I think, dead last year in explosive play rate. So we're going to need some big plays, whether that's, deep balls to, George Pickens, run and catch stuff with Deontay, Chase. They're going to have to find a way to be more explosive because the Steelers' offense isn't talented enough up front to sustain like 10 and 12 play drives over the course of the season.
No.
It's just not going to happen. Like on a snap-to-snap basis, they're in the hole so much up front that it's just not going to happen. You're going to need 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 explosive plays if you really want to have a really successful day on offense. So we'll see how that plays out, man. New quarterback, some new weapons. Got George Pickens. I'm excited to see what he does in his first like actual NFL game.
Yes, very much so excited about what George Pickens is going to do. The dude had no idea that rivalries actually existed in the NFL. He's like, yeah, I just thought everybody just played each other. I'm like, dude, you don't even know.
Look,
like, does Georgia have a rival? Alabama, I guess.
The reason that George probably thinks that is because George probably thinks that everybody's his rival. He was trying to fight everybody in college. So he probably looked at everyone the same. Like he's just trying to kill everything. So I think that's why George doesn't realize I think he just treats everything the same. I think he's just trying to body.
Yeah, he's just like, I will body every single person on the field. No questions asked.
Across from George is his rival.
All right, let's finish it off here. My most exciting time of the year. The Pittsburgh Steelers dogs against the Bengals. 6.5 point spread. I took them. I took the Steelers. I think that I don't think they're going to win. And I know people are going to be mad at me for that, but I don't think they're going to win. But my gosh, 3 times they're relentless out there in the comment section. 6.5. I think they'll cover the 6.5. I think this could be a 3-point game, an Evan McPherson type game, or like maybe 4. I don't know. 6.5 points, 44.5 over under. I love the smile because that means you're thinking something and it's going to be controversial. What do you got? Hit me with it.
What's the over under?
44.5.
Oh man. I'll say 24-16 Bengals.
24. Oh, I didn't give a score. I should have gave a score. 24-16 Bengals. So they cover the spread.
No.
Yeah.
Spread 6.5. That's 8.
Yeah. So they would cover the spread. They
yeah. You're right. I'm talking about. I thought you were saying the Steelers would cover the spread. I see.
No. So the Bengals cover the spread, but it's under the 44.5. All right, I like that. I didn't go. I think it's going to be under. I'm going to go with under as well. I think the Steelers keep the 6.5. Oh gosh, I wasn't thinking of a score. Okay, all right, because 21-17 is what pops in my head, but I think that pops in my head for every single game ever. It's just like that sounds like a good score. That's a very reasonable score there. You said 24-16. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm going to go 24-20 Bengals. Don't know how it happens. Chris Boswell maybe hits 2. Add him to your fantasy football team. We'll see what happens. I think 24-20 Bengals. I feel good about that one. Keeps them in the under by a point. Everybody else is saying, no way, we're wrong. I love to see it.
No, full disclosure. I'm hoping that the Steelers.
No, obviously nobody's like, man, dude, I hope they get smoked and my bet on the podcast is right. Like, just like Roberto said, I stay as far away from picking Steelers games as humanly possible until once we hit a point where I'm like rocking, I'm like, all right, well, I got to put my money where my mouth is. And then we lose, but that's on me. I'll take full responsibility.
Jesse, I see Jesse's comment. Jesse, I think you've been real pessimistic in the chat. All right. I'm going to be honest with you, But here's the deal. You aren't wrong about that, though, because here's the deal. This is the worst part about being like me and Noah is everyone will get mad when we predict, like if we pick against the Steelers, like just trying to be not biased, right? And then on Monday morning after the game, when I start going through like the tape breakdowns and stuff, everybody's just like losing their cool on me. Like, how could this happen? Excuses. Everybody's in a bad mood, all this different stuff. And I'm just like, man, like you hated me because I said they were going to lose and then it happened. And then you're still upset. So
I know, this is the life we live. This is like, I don't know if you ever read the comment sections, but they're scary sometimes. Love every single one of you guys, but
no, not everyone.
Scary. Not everyone. No. Thank
But
God our life.
It's always easy to have an opinion though, like when it can't be tracked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the same thing. Like you have to be understanding of like, people's viewpoints on stuff like that. Like we get on here on YouTube and do like a 40-minute show, and like there's no way that anything we predict, like everything we predict is gonna come true. And like I've got thousands of tweets like on a monthly basis going over Steelers stuff. So there's no way that everything's gonna be true. And I definitely don't hide from the fact that we get stuff wrong. But it's just funny because it's like all the people like, I told you were gonna be wrong about this. I told you like this player stinks, this player's great. It's like, man, like we don't know if you were saying that 2 months ago because you're not putting it out there. So.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like you're just looking at it, you're just like everything we say is out there, and most time. But like, don't get me wrong, come at me every time. Tell me I'm an idiot because I'll be like, you're right. I thought something totally different, and I was totally wrong. So it's a great time. I'm excited. Mitch Trubisky's first game, the revamped defense, Cincinnati Bengals trying to win a Super Bowl after losing a Super Bowl, which might be the hardest thing to do in football. And if the Bills-Rams last night was any indication of how Sunday will go, people should be very excited if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Enjoy your first weekend of football. It's a great one. Me and Steven will be back on Monday. Make sure to subscribe to us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk and check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. Enjoy your weekend. Go Steelers. Peace.